I am super excited and extremely grateful to be having a conversation about justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion with Dr. Lamondre Pugh, who I'm just going to be affectionately calling Lamondre, if that's okay.
It's perfectly fine.
Now, Lamondre isn't in the Supply Side studio today or at Supply Side West, and he isn't in the health and nutrition, supplement, or food and beverage industries. But, and this is why I wanted to loop him into the conversation, Lamondre is a Jedi expert. He consults and trains organizations, not industry specific, telling them why Jedi is important and how they can do better. Now, prior to this recording, Lamondre and I had a conversation about some of the other speakers and the topics that were going to be covered in the studio today. And he had some really great things to say that kind of brought everything together. So let's start there, Lamondre.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to participate in this event. And I'm very passionate about Jedi. I'm passionate about the issues that surround that, and how we move forward as a people. And just to give you a little bit of background about myself, the reason that is because I am a person with a disability, and when I was 18 years old, I was thrust into a world that was not necessarily that welcoming or accessible to people like me. And I experienced culture shock. And from that point on, I set on a journey to do what I could to make a difference in the world. You know, the saying that says, be the change that you want to see. Well, I took that to heart. And so for over the past 25 years, this is what I've dedicated my life to, really focusing in on disability. And I'll tell you, I'm happy to have this conversation with you, Sony, because in looking at the other topics of the sessions, and looking at what the speakers are bringing to this event, there's a common theme that runs through all of that, and I'm going to share with you some ideas and some insights and some takeaways today, that things that you can apply in your practice and what you do on a daily basis to really help create more inclusive environments where justice reigns and diversity is not only appreciated or embraced, but it's actually harnessed to help propel the organization forward. But I tell you, before we actually get to that, one of the things that I really want us to do is I want us to take some time to celebrate. I want us to take some time to really think about how far we've come, and how much we've already have put into this, and what we've gained from it, because we've made some significant strides. We've made some significant progress. And when we start thinking about the diversity of perspectives, when you start thinking about the diversity of experiences and what that brings to the table and how it helps us to innovate and open into new markets, it is an endeavor that is worthwhile. And so you've heard the stories that were shared by the other speakers, and you've heard how all of these different people, with all of their different perspectives, when we come together and when we really embrace, and when we really become intentional about these kinds of things, the incredible difference that it can make. So I'm I'm excited about where we are, and I'm happy. I'm very happy to be a part of this today. And I want to tell you my perspective, because, as I said before, I am a person with a disability. Just to give you a little bit of background about me, I have spinal muscular atrophy. And spinal muscular atrophy, if you're not familiar with it, is a progressive neurological disorder. And basically, what it means is that my body does not produce a specific protein that's necessary for healthy muscle growth. What does that mean? As a result, I can't bathe myself. I can't feed myself. I need help with every aspect of life. I'm a full time wheelchair user. I use a power wheelchair. The only thing that I can really run is my mouth, uh, and thinking. And sometimes I need help with that even. But my life is dope. It is. I lead a very fulfilling a very fulfilling life, and that's not in spite of, and that's not in spite of a disability. No, that's rocking it with my disability. Why? Because I believe that disability is simply this. It is simply a point of diversity. It is not a negative. It is not a positive. I am not broken. I am not sick. I am simply Lamondre. And all that comes with being Lamondre, a part of it is my disability. Now, understand something. It is not the defining point of who I am, but it's certainly a defining point of who I am. Why? Because it informs a portion of my perspective. It's a part of my experience. It's a part of how I view the world in terms of how I interact with the world. So, no, it is not something to be um, looked at as a deficit, but neither is it something that should be looked at as, oh, he's so wonderful because he ate a hot dog and he's a person with a disability. Nah, it's just a part of who I am, and it's a part of what makes up who I am. So this is really amazing, and again, I'm excited about this event and what we're doing with Supply Side West.
I know that you'd said it quite definitely more eloquently than I could say it, but you'd said something about, there's all of these different groups, but disability is one that anyone can become a part of at any time in their life and probably will.
Oh, absolutely. Let me tell you, disability honestly is the largest minority group in the world, bar none. The largest minority group in the world is estimated by the World Health Organization that there are over 1.3 billion people on the planet that experience some form of disability. That's 1.3 billion. But I would tell you that number is probably extremely conservative because of because many people don't want to identify as people with disabilities. And not only do people not want to identify, a lot of times countries and organizations really don't track the data properly, or there is no uniformity in how you track the data. So I believe the estimate is probably more around 1.7 to 1.8 billion people on the planet.
Take into consideration people with invisible disabilities, right?
Absolutely. And yeah, and it does take that into consideration. And that's the thing. A lot of people, especially with invisible disabilities, don't even count themselves as people with disabilities. So the definition is just as diverse as the people on the planet. But in the US, there's estimated over 61 million people in the US that are affected by disabilities. I'm talking about adults, working age adults with disabilities. So that means that in the US, that 1 in 4 people are people with disabilities, which is huge, which is huge. So when I say that either you have had a disability, you are going to have a disability, and if that is through the process of illness, accident, or as my grandma would say, you just keep on living, baby, you will experience some form of disability. And it could be temporary, it could be permanent, or it even could be situational. But that's why I like to use disability kind of as the universal perspective that I view diversity, equity, and inclusion and justice through. So yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
I was going to ask you, Lamondre, in your own words, why is Jedi important?
Hmm. It's actually a huge question, but first of all, I think Jedi is important because it is really a way of understanding the human condition. And what I mean by that is how we're different and how we're alike, how we transverse this world together as a unit, as opposed to focusing on dividing us, as opposed to focusing on what separates us. What we look at is how do we embrace the differences that we all share in order for us to move forward as a species. So I think it's important because it really does bring into perspective the concept of what it means to be just or to exhibit justice. It helps to bring in the concept of equity and what equity really means. It helps us to understand that by appreciating our differences and embracing and harnessing the power of that difference, what it can do for us in terms of moving us forward, and also what does it mean to be truly inclusive, and how we take inclusion to create senses and ideas and feelings of belonging. That's why I believe it's so important, because this is about all of us. It's not just about people who stand out as unique or different, but it's about all of us being exactly who we are and being able to bring that to the table and exist in a world where, when we think about it, that not only are our differences recognized, but they're respected, and honestly, they're promoted. So it's a beautiful thing. So what does that mean? What does justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion mean, and how does it play out? So when we start to think about justice, I love what Carnell West said, Dr. Carnell West, when he said that justice is what love looks like in public. I absolutely love that. There we often hear, especially when we're talking about this kind of thing, and people have a tendency to politicize it, but it's not political at all. It's really about just who we are. But when we think about the term of justice, justice is not just about recognizing that everyone has rights, regardless. Everyone has rights, but no, it's really about respecting those rights, protecting those rights, and honestly, even promoting those rights. And why do I say it like that? Because the truth is, you can have rights, but if those things are violated, if those things are not recognized, if those things are not enforced, it's just that, yeah, I have a right, but what does that mean for me? How does that play out in my life? Well, justice is how it plays out. Justice is how it plays out when it's on the right side of things. When it's about not only recognizing that those rights are there, but actually protecting those rights for everyone. So that justice piece is important, and it's an extension. It goes further than just rights. It goes further than just an understanding, but it really is about what it looks like to live that out loud. And I think that that's an important piece of it.
One could argue, Lamondre, especially after hearing so many incredible people talk in the studio today, that we're doing it, right? Like we are making a difference and bringing about change that benefits all people.
Absolutely. We are doing it, and that's a good thing. And we need to celebrate the progress that we made. But I dare say we're not there yet. We're making progress, but we're not there yet. And I'll tell you why I say that. First of all, when you start talking about these kinds of issues, there has to be an understanding that it's ever changing. There's a lot of fluidity, and no one ever just arrives. No one ever is. There is never a chance or never a moment where it's just like, oh, we've got there now. We've got it. That's it. Enough said. Don't need to do anything else with that. As long as there are people, there will always be evolution. As long as there are evolution, there will always be a need to have crucial conversations and to deal with things head on. My grandmother, I grew up in rural South Carolina, and my grandmother had a saying. She said, once you become completely satisfied, it's time to die. And, for the longest, I didn't quite understand what she meant by that. But after a little bit of living, I now get it. What she was really saying was, once there is nothing that you can learn, once there is nothing that you can contribute, once there is nothing that you can bring value to or glean value from, it is time to move on to something else. Once you become completely satisfied, it's time to die. And the truth is, as new people move in and out of the industry, as new people move in and out of different spaces, the truth is there will always be change. When you hear this thing about change being the only thing that is inevitable, it is the truth. It is happening, and it's going to happen. And so, as long as that is the case, there will always be a need for this kind of thing, because no one ever gets it right 100% of the time. And I think that what we have to do is bring that part of our humanity there, that we never know it all, that there's no one who's ever seen it all. So because of that, there's a constant evolution that we all really need to be equipped for and figure out, how do we deal with it. So, yeah, we've come a long way, but I think we also have a very long way to go. And I really think things like the pandemic showed us that, showed us how far we still have yet to go.
So, Lamondre, what steps can organizations take to provide a more inclusive culture?
Mm. There's several things. There's several things that can be done, but this is some of the most basic stuff that I teach organizations. And honestly, this is not only through the work that I do as as a Jedi practitioner and a consultant, but also the work that I do through an organization called Billion Strong, which is an identity organization by and for people with disabilities, which I lead. But things I want to leave you with. First of all, see that there is a difference. What do I mean that by that? I mean recognize that differences exist, and we don't need to, like I like to say, we don't need to turn away from it as if they don't, or try to cover it up as if they don't. And I'll give you a quick story. Inevitably, through the work that I do, I have this conversation. I've had this conversation way more times than I really care to remember. But after working with people for a while, I will inevitably hear this: Lamondre, you're very talented. You bring a lot to the table. There is so much value you bring that I don't even see your disability. Now, I want you to understand something. I am 220 pounds of bald headed black man in a 350-pound wheelchair. Okay. So when I come into the room, you see that I have a disability. It's no question. It is no question about it. But I understood the spirit in which that comment was made. I really did. And I understood it was supposed to be a compliment, but it's not. And here's why it's not. First of all, what you're saying is there are certain beliefs that I hold about disability, that it's a negative, that it's less than, that it is a liability. But because of who you are and what you've brought to the table, I don't see any of those negatives represented in you. Therefore, I don't see your disability. When the truth is, you do indeed see my disability. But what you're saying is, I don't see the deficits or the problems that I associate with disability. So that is a comment that is rooted really in ableism. And ableism is a concept that people with disabilities are inferior to those without disabilities. But here's the thing. As I said before, when I come to the table and I'm bringing that talent, I'm bringing those things that you value, my disability came to the table as well. And it's a part of what informed my perspective. It's a part of what made me valuable. It's a part of what shaped how I view the world. So to deny me of that is to deny me of a part of who I am. As I said, disability is a defining point, but it is not the defining point. And I am very intersectional, meaning that there are other pieces of me that also contribute to that. Many of those pieces are pieces that also represent communities that have been marginalized as well. And it's the conversion of those marginalizations that have perpetuated oppression in different ways. So it's important, if you're really looking at creating an inclusive culture, that we first see and recognize that there is a difference. It is not, I just don't see it. Yes, you do, and you need to. The second thing is to seek to understand the difference. Seek to understand how that interplays. Seek to understand the intersectionality. Seek to understand the perspective. Seek to understand the voice of it. And the third thing is then engage. Once you've understood, or once you've sought and have really taken the time to try and understand, then engage. And let me tell you something, don't get that out of order. Now, there's a saying that says passion without precision equals chaos. Well, what does that mean? That means that I have been in many situations where people have said, yes, we want to hold the banner up. We want to be your ally and work with you, but they don't understand. And what they end up doing is running and making a train wreck of a situation. So the engagement piece has to start after a mutual understanding has been met. And that's an important piece of the puzzle. The other thing that I want to leave you with is find and become the champion. Let me explain to you that a little bit more in a story. So as I said, when I was a kid, I grew up in rural South Carolina, and we used to play kickball out in front of my house. Now here's the thing: I could kick, but I could not run. And so I had a friend, Dexter. Dexter was my first friend. I was his second friend, but Dexter could run. And so whenever we'd be playing kickball, he would jump up and say, "I'm running for Bubba." Now here's the thing: my nickname is Bubba. All right, so see, that's a difference, something you probably didn't expect. But no, I am a Bubba, and my nickname is Bubba. And I love the fact that Dexter would say, "I'm going to run for Bubba," because here's the thing: when they rolled the ball to me and I would kick it, Dexter would take off running, and Dexter was fast. Dexter could run. Dexter would juke spin. He would pivot. He would do all this stuff. So nine times out of 10, he would at least make it to second base, right? And so we had a great chance of winning as a team. In that scenario, Dexter was my champion. What is a champion? A champion is someone who may not be affected by the issue, who may not be a part of the group, but they saw the difference, they sought to understand it, and the engagement was him being willing to run for me. See, here's the thing. There are people with a specific circle of influence or a sphere of influence. There are people with certain privileges who, when they see the difference, they've understood the difference, and they've engaged with it. They can open doors that individual who belongs to the group could not. They can speak out in places and bring the perspective in rooms that you would have never had access to. They then become your champion. But the flip side of that is for you to become the champion, for you to become part of organizations and groups, and that you are not necessarily dealing with that issue, but you've seen the difference, you've understood it, and you've engaged in it, and you're willing to use your influence, you're willing to use your privilege to make a difference for them. You see, that speaks to the unity of it all. Because what would it look like if the only time I ever spoke up about something was only about the times when it impacted me personally? That means when things came up for me, I'm the only voice there. But if I'm also speaking out for others, I have become their champion. I'll have champions when it's time for me. So it's about building that unity. It's about us all embracing each other. And then the last thing really is about sharing the information regarding your challenges and your triumphs. What do I mean by that? It's easy to feel like you're alone when you're the one working on this issue. In many instances, there are not formal systems set up for people to be dedicated to it. So the people who are, they're either volunteering to be a part of it, or it's been lumped on them as a part of their job, as an add-on to their job. And it's easy to feel siloed. It's easy to feel alone. And so by sharing the triumphs and the challenges, it builds a sense of community, and it spawns innovation and ideas. So you'll know that, number one, I'm not alone. And there are resources that you can connect with. Well, this is what we did over here. Well, this is what worked over here. Well, this is what didn't work over there. So sharing that information. So see the difference, seek to understand the difference, engage in it, become and find the champions, and share the information of challenges and triumphs. And even though those are very basic things to do, they're really the basis of what it is to start to turn the ship of creating inclusive cultures.
I know one of the things that you had said when we spoke earlier was that, of course, organizations, focus on these things, but that it starts with the individual.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It does start with the individual. And I'll tell you, as we're this work and what we do, for me, it's a passion thing. It's not only, how I make my living, but it's a passion thing. I'm truly dedicated about it. And it's the kind of thing where it can be overwhelming. And it does start with the individual in that it is not one person creating one huge Herculean effort to make a change, but it's the aggregate of us all working together. Just like those stories that you heard throughout this particular session. When we come together, what power! When we come together, what strength! But let me tell you this: it is really, as I said, it's the aggregate of all of the efforts of us coming together. But I want to leave you with this to think about. The three things that I believe are important for the individual to consider in this process. And I just want you to think about these three things. And the first thing is be brave. And what do I mean by that? Be brave enough to speak out when you see injustices. Be brave enough to be the person to say, I really want to be that change that I want to see. Be brave enough to look foolish, to present ideas that other people are saying, we've never done it like that before. Be brave enough to put that out there. The second thing is to be smart. Now, what do I mean by being smart? Be smart enough to look for innovation in places that traditionally haven't been tapped. Be smart enough to pick the battles. Be smart enough to be intentional about the change that you're trying to implement. And be smart enough to know when you need help. And be smart enough to know when you need to back up a little bit. Because the idea is about progression here. And then the third thing that I want to leave you with is this. There will be times when your bravery fails, when you can't muster the courage to move forward. There will be times when your intellect just won't get it, and we can't figure it out. In those times, do this. Be kind. So when my heart fails, and when my intellect is just not enough, kindness prevails. And let me tell you, this kindness does not necessarily always mean being nice, but it does mean treating each situation with dignity, treating it with respect, even when we don't necessarily understand. And I'll tell you this, your understanding is not required to show respect. Your understanding is not required to treat people with dignity. And just to give you an example of that, if you were standing on the edge of a 1,000-foot cliff, you may not understand all the physics behind gravity. You may not understand all the physics behind what happens if you jump off that cliff, but I guarantee you respect it. I guarantee you'll treat it with dignity. So again, your understanding is not required to show respect, nor to show dignity. So be brave, be smart, but most importantly, be kind.
Lamondre, I always enjoy conversations with you. Is there any words that you'd like to leave us with today?
You know what? I think that the main thing about this is that we're all in this together. In that by embracing justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, what that does is it is not making it right for a special set aside group of people. This is about all of us. This is about every single one of us. This is about how we grow our businesses. This is about getting perspectives and creating environments that spawn innovation, that spawn growth in times of change. You see, it's those different perspectives. It's those different lived experiences that help us come together and come up with solutions and situations that we might not have thought about if everything was always about, well, this is the way that we've always done it. You know, I'm going to tell you, it's a beautiful thing to see what happens when we weave together this tapestry of diversity and we embrace the concept of having access and transparency, living out the concept of justice. Because I will tell you, one of the things that's so beautiful and that's so important, is that we recognize that this human condition that we all have found ourselves in is a beautiful experience with all of the differences, with all of the struggles, with all of the stuff associated with it. This is not a political issue. This is a human issue, but it's an issue that can move this industry forward, that can actually move us all forward in all aspects of it. So just remember that we're all in this together. And my goal is to help people live big, full, authentic lives on purpose by not just embracing differences, but harnessing it to be the jet fuel that moves us all forward. That's it.
It's a celebration. A
Absolutely. Let's
celebration.
party, y'all.
Once again, thank you, Lamondre. I look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you, Sonia.